pressure whatsoever. If Daisy's going to be making a noise,
Okay,
I'm
cool.
just telling the people on Twitter to come through. I'm just getting the link so that I can share it. And thanks so much for spending your time with us.
Thank you for allowing me.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Um, okay, cool. So you were actually just about to speak. You were actually saying something. You were like, what's your history?
Oh no, I was just with our discussion, just saying, I've been following politics around the world for many years. I've been
Yeah.
following political shifts and moves for many years. So yeah, I could foresee where things are heading, and sadly also where things are heading for certain African countries, and including South Africa. Yeah,
Mm. No, give
yeah.
us more detail. We took the time to hang out with you today because we actually want to hear about you. So when you say you've worked in politics and world politics, what do you mean? And break it
No, no,
down, give us more, and give
yeah,
us more information.
not worked in it, followed it since I was very young. For some reason, I don't know
Yeah.
why. Since I was like
Nice.
12 years old, I've been following politics, especially in South Africa, very closely. Like I said many times before, I've always looked at the world as empires, not as individual, independent countries. And I think since 2020 till today, it's becoming more clear that the world is still ruled by empires, and there's still very big people behind the scenes pulling the strings and making the changes. And also, what we could see since 2020, we could see a bigger hand taking more control over world politics and entrenched into government, self-admittedly entrenched into government. I'm talking now about the World Economic Forum, for instance. And you could very clearly link all our politicians, the ones involved, our media owners, our politicians, our ministers, our presidents, our finance ministers, to this unelected globalist extremist body that that makes changes, that influence or propose policy for our countries. And I
What do
think
you
that's a very,
mean?
yeah.
Sorry, what does that mean?
I think that's a very big problem for our country and for every other country. It takes away our sovereignty of decision making and policy. And we've got an issue where nepotism has become to an extreme level that it's not discussed anymore. Nobody talks about nepotism anymore, and it's as if the word disappeared. But if we look at the president giving the sonar tonight, in my honest, straightforward, honest opinion, is a criminal, right? Giving the State of the Nation address tonight with 400 complicit or guilty politicians surrounding him in Parliament, and we know his brother-in-law sits on the World Economic Forum, on the board of trustees of the World Economic Forum. That's the big decision-making body of that body. And yeah, we could see from that what stems from that. We have new policies on green energy and whatsoever being rolled out, and he benefits directly from that. His company and his benefits directly. He will get, according to news reports, he will get up to 50% of all the renewable deals in the country. Now that's the president's brother-in-law. And then we have the same on the other side. I always say we have two problems in South Africa. Not two problems, we have a few problems. We have white evil people and black evil people that want to take control of everything. And that is part of the reason this country is being broken down. You have to break it, and then they buy it for next to nothing, or take control over everything for next to nothing. And that's what we can see in the privatization of everything in South Africa. So, and sadly so, those big policies are driven from the World Economic Forum, from that is now in cahoots. I'm saying in cahoots, but in working together with the United Nations to roll out these policies, and we can see the negative impact on our country. Whilst we are prevented from using and applying our coal to the maximum so to benefit the country, European countries and UK, they are exporting our coal. via via again a company represented on that body. Glencore, for instance, is a big coal owner and exporter in South Africa, and which had direct links with the president again and with his brother-in-law again. So this is what we have. And my concern for having this discussion with you in public and whatever, I've been doing so for the last 4 years, is I'm concerned about this country. I am concerned. I'm concerned about the youth of this country, because that should be all of our biggest concern right now. Is where does the youth go? We're not going to be here forever. What do we leave behind? And because of that, I think it's time that everyone, citizen in this country, start thinking like grown-ups for a change. We so divided to the core amongst all these political parties. And I always say, that it's the color of your t-shirt that matters these days. And it's the fabric that t-shirt is. It must be so strong, because it seems that that is what everyone supports. People cannot see beyond politics anymore. They cannot see the real issues, what's influencing these issues from outside, and the fact that this country is losing all sovereignty. And that is the big concern.
So you're going to have to unpack us some more and like give us examples and tell us exactly what's going on, so that how do you as a white man speak against the government without being seen as racist, and considering our history and your privilege. So break it down properly so so we understand what you mean about this new order.
I am not in denial of anything that happened in this country through history. From We can go back to 1652, 1900 with the British colony, 1960 with the fake independence that kept the minerals in the same people's hands, 1994 with this a pre-planned takeover of the ANC, whereas unfortunately, which we can now see today, I know you spoke to Moletsi Mbeki the other day as well, and he raised some concerns. And we know a lot of those ANC people that are in power today were bureaucrats. They spent their time in Europe, and that's the first policy they drove when they took power. That includes Thabo Mbeki. There's one thing that Moletsi Mbeki forgot to mention, that his brother was highly influential to sell out Africa's economy to the West, and that's the reality. And that happened. That happened, unfortunately. If you listen to that same body, the World Economic Forum, they announced in 1986 or 87, I'm not exactly sure, that apartheid is coming to an end and change is coming. We know already that Thabo Mbeki in 1991, I believe, it's either 91 or 92, met at the World Economic Forum in Geneva with Klaus Schwab, with the National Party's finance minister. So there was already negotiations going on before the change came to South Africa. They already, and unfortunately, that's such a big influence in this country. So what happened in 1994? There was the change over to the ANC, the Rainbow Nation. Everything is going to be good. We're going to change. We're going to make peace, and we're going to move forward. Now, unfortunately, some people, the same powerful people, took advantage of that situation and bought out the entire peace and prosperity that we were supposed to have. And that came through people like Cyril Ramaphosa, who was the chief negotiator for the ANC at the time. People like Rolf Meyer, who was the National Party chief negotiator at the time. They now sit on the same side of the table. They sit on the same side. Rolf Meyer is now his advisor. So this is what we have. And people will remember very clearly, when the National Party disintegrated, a lot of the people went over to the ANC. People will remember very well, under Nelson Mandela's term, he did not have a panel of advisors. It was in the country, there was euphoria in the country, and we're going to make this work. And I believe a lot of people on all sides felt to make this work. But then came a very big wedge that was driven between the people of this country. And in that euphoria, they murdered Chris Hani, right? They murdered Chris Hani. And what did the National Party and the ANC do? They blamed the right-wing people, right? So immediately it drove the wedge that it's white people that killed a very beloved leader of South African Communist Party involved with MK and ANC. So that drove a wedge. And immediately the euphoria was gone, and that was there was gone. Okay, and unfortunately, or not unfortunately, fortunately today, we must reinvestigate that situation because it was not white people, but it might have been white people, rich. Let me call it what I call it: white monopoly capital mafia. There's a mafia in this country. Now, they might have been involved because they did not want the country to change from the capitalist system that it has, that it had. Okay, the same people in control of the minerals, the same owners of big industry and whatsoever. They did not want that change. So they basically involved the ANC. That's why since Ramaphosa was the Secretary General, there was change, and then immediately he went into the private sector. And he went under the wings of these conglomerates. We could see him getting shares, and I know on record from very high-level people that some of the shares that he received was free shares. Now, that in itself should be investigated. Who gives a senior kingpin free shares? Nelson Mandela's own words was when Cyril Ramaphosa stepped down, he said he must go to the private sector to make money. So he cannot be corrupted when he comes back to be president later. Right? And this was repeated by Rupert in 2020 at the African Summit. He repeated those words that what they were discussing. So he went into the private sector and he got bought, completely bought. Sorry, but that's our reality. And now today he sits in this position, he has to pay up. So who's getting the hold of this country? Then move further. Then came Jacob Zuma. Now he, in the first 5-year term, he had a lot of support. People thought he's just going to toe the line, as far as I understand it. And then came the second term, and he upset the people a lot in the second term. And again, from high level people, they decided then in his second term, they're going to change things. And this is 2015, 16, when big business people in this country physically decided to change the country, to change the political system in this country. Now, since 2020, 2019, we suddenly start hearing about this coalition government and we're going to work together. That was all pre-planned. And unfortunately, but real, a lot of the people involved in this, coalitions with independents were pre-planned, and a lot of people were pre-chosen by big business people. And I have that on record. So you have the first person that brought the bill, the new, electoral reform bill to Parliament was Terra Lakota in 2018. You can search that. Now, then already they started moving with this. And Masawa Lakota is involved in that fact, right? And then Musi Maimane stepped off of the DA. Then they approached Musi Maimane. I mean, there's high-level people that told me that he's funded by a German business conglomerate and he had a specific goal. Then we look at the Democratic Alliance. I mean, that is, I'm sorry, but as you could see very publicly, very in support of Israel, and looking into their history, the leadership of the DA is very Israeli aligned. And we know there's big funding also coming to the DA from that side. So this is what we have as a country. We don't have a political system where we choose individuals. We never had that. And that's the problem. We never had that. And it's so easy to manipulate people. First of all, we have to ask the question that I'm like you say, rightfully so. I'm a white guy in South Africa. I see myself as a South African only. I don't see myself as white, black, colored, green. No, God made me who I am. So it's not by choice, So, but I look at all these things. I look at and I judge my own people as well for their evil. But I cannot see who holds the strings at the moment and who holds their strings. And I think that's the most important thing we must unpack. But it's obviously being critical like this, being a white guy, it's frowned upon. But the people frowning upon must ask themselves, why would I put myself out here to share this information? Why would I raise these questions? Because I am concerned for this country. And I believe the trajectory we are on as a country leads to one thing only, and that is conflict. And that's the last thing every single South African should want. I do not fear conflict, as God is my witness. I do not fear conflict. But I know it will destroy this country for every single one. And I know if These big powers that control this country would have their way.
There's the Illuminati taking the truth away from us. Um, I'm thinking that he will. Maybe it's load shedding that he just got. But those was quite some scoops, guys. Hey, it is hot, hot, hot. Okay, let me figure it out, guys. Because his screen is just hanging. I don't know what's gonna happen to my. Okay, maybe he's gonna rejoin. There we go.
I don't know. I think it's a signal, maybe, or something. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, or the Illuminati.
Probably. Listen here, I've been talking a lot, so I allow you to ask questions if you wish. But I
What
can
what
answer
did
questions.
what did you change in your settings? We can't hear you properly anymore.
I did not change anything.
Okay, log off again and log on again, maybe.
Okay.
Cool. Guys, um, no, don't stress. It's coming. It's gonna work out. Please come through with the questions. There we go. Let me add him. Um,
Hear me.
there we go. Much better. Yes.
Sorry for that. Sorry for that.
Yes. No,
The
it's
thing
not a
is,
problem.
the thing is, if you want to unpack this thing, you have to be realistic, and you have to look at consider the last National Party president we had, Evie de Klerk, right? His father served in the British Empire government. So it's always been the same people, sorry, but the same people serving the, I call it the cabal because it's normally lots of people that conspire or have this is the same goal. But it's the same people been serving till that since that time until now. And why did nothing change fundamentally in this country? Why? Because what we have today is we have most of the wealth of this country leaving this country via minerals, via so many things, via everything being owned in South Africa by conglomerates. We can see the shutting down of small business and medium business and everything being taken over by conglomerates. Now, those conglomerates has foreign investors. So it's not all to the benefit of South African business people or South African people. And this has been the norm. This is what we know as the norm. And this leaves our population completely excluded from the economy of South Africa. And I know this is a contestation point. People will say now, yeah, white people control the economy. There
Hmm.
are, there are white people in control of the economy. No argument there. But it's the absolute minority. The other people have their business and they keep on what they're doing, and they just continue and survive. I'm not denying in any way that there's a big gap, between
Hmm.
black and white in South Africa. That's the real fact. What I would love to see in this country is that we uplift the other side. But personally, as a person, as a white person in South Africa, I have absolutely no control over that. No control. I can do in my own personal capacity what I can, but I don't have a political voice unless I go with what the DA or the Freedom Front Plus. Those absolute deadwood parties that's been sitting there for how many years, bringing no change whatsoever. Um,
What's wrong
choosing
with
to
going with a young black party as a white person?
Well, I would opt for any party that stand for change in this country, real change, not bloody small change, not change, real change. That wants the independence of this country first. That wants to take back the minerals of this country, but not nationalize it under these thieving politicians. I'm sorry, we have to agree. If you have corruption under the nose of Parliament to the value of billions or trillions, right? Every single one there has taken an individual oath to protect the constitution and this country, right? Now they all turn a blind eye because any single one of them can say, investigate. Any single one of them can say, investigate, but they choose not to. And even a person like me, when you challenge him directly, I'm talking about the leader of the Freedom Front Plus. When I challenge him directly, he says, we prefer to resolve this at the ballot box. Mr. Minion, absolute small party, what can you resolve at the ballot box? Nothing. So act on your constitutional obligation, on your oath of office. Now, this is what we sit with, and that is why I'm saying clearly we have 400 members in parliament that are either guilty or complicit. In reality, no question, in South Africa, we have a constitutional.
Mm-hmm. Damn. Once again, right inside the juice.
Can you hear me?
No, the sound. Can you log off again and log on? It's doing the sound thing again.
Sorry, man. I don't know what's happening. Why? It's because I talk like I talk, maybe.
Okay, it's actually better. It's better. We can hear you. Oh, okay. Guys, don't be shy to ask questions, ne? I do have my cell phone here on me. Um, um, but I mean, I would understand why the Illuminati is turning off
No, I don't know what's
the.
happening. The reality is why I'm speaking out here is I'm stating this because we have to consider this as South African citizens. We have a constitutional crisis, right? And the problem is one if one or more of your uh, 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 almost say spheres, pillars of government is not functioning properly, that defines a constitutional crisis. Now, if us as South African citizens through the board realize this and say this is the reality what we face, we have a constitutional crisis, and we have the person creating this constitutional crisis still sitting on the number one seat. And it's not just Pala Pala. It's not just Pala Pala. It is the fact that Glencore was found guilty internationally where they operate, except for in South Africa where he was directly involved. It's the fact that he stood in front of Zondo and he said he knew exactly of certain instances of corruption, but he decided to remain and resist. That is his word. Now, that means he knew about a crime and he kept silent as the president, as the vice president. So that makes him, he's hiding a crime. That's against the law in South Africa. Thirdly, there's the leaked NEC audio from the ANC NEC audio that got brushed aside by the media and just silenced, where he admitted, we all know public funds are being used for election campaigns. So we have a admission of guilt. We have a guilty and a complicit president. And you know what? All the criminals and the hyenas in politics, they will love such a president. All the big conglomerates and businesses, they will love such a president because it's an automatic quid pro quo. You keep him in position and you can get whatever you want. And whilst this is playing out, this country is going down the drain. This country is going down the drain, and I don't think the people understand the seriousness of this. We have major issues in this country to resolve. I fully agree. We must resolve the land issue. We must
Yeah.
resolve resolve the inequality issue. We must resolve the unemployment crisis, the education crisis. We have so many crises that must resolve, but we have to start somewhere. How do we get change in this country? How do we get change? We need to cut the chains that holding South Africa through its own politicians. We have to admit to ourselves, voting for any single one of the top five parties is absolutely useless because you're voting for the same mineral owners that fund them. You're voting for the same media that controls this country, media, the people that controls the media, that funds the political parties. So no change will come by voting for the top five parties. And I'm a white person saying this. I would beg the youth of this country not to rise up, but to rise up.
Oh man. This technical things, huh? I see you guys. I see you in the comment.
Am I still there?
Okay, you're back.
Okay. I would implore the youth of this country, because they are the majority of this country, and they're not interested in politics as the elder people. You hear me?
The volume is a bit low.
I don't know why.
I don't know. Someone in the audience, maybe how's the volume? Someone in the audience. Oh, now we can't hear you at all. Maybe log
Okay,
off
let
and
me.
on again. Guys, you must tell me your questions. And all right, coolly. There we go. Yeah.
So I'll just continue there. I would implore the youth to face the truth of South Africa, because we have two options going forward. We can either remain on this extremely divided position with like 300 political parties, 300 wrong choices, in my opinion, or we can really opt for change in this country. And there are options for change, real options. And I'm talking beyond politics, beyond if you've got an ANC or an EFF or DA t-shirt. I don't care. I'm talking about the people of this country and its future, beyond politics, beyond race. We have 60 million people. It's divided through so many cultural groups. I'm sure by first choice, none of us want to fight, right? None of us want to fight each other. I would like to see everybody in this country prosper. And I know it's very possible to achieve that. But it's not possible through the current political system. It's not. It's not with what we have possible. It's not possible while our politicians are chained. The kings in this country, I'm sorry, I'm not being disrespectful, but the monarchs in this country are more ceremonial now than anything else. And that is the sad reality. I disagree with that. I believe at least there should be a voice. If politics fails people, they should be able to turn to their king and say, lead us, show us the way at least. What do we
Mm.
do? So it's sadly
So,
that what we can see through many generations,
mm,
the monarchies has been broken down. And I do know, Chiki, a lot of people in South Africa fear this tribalism. I, we don't live in 1800 anymore. Neither do the kings, and neither do these monarchs. Neither. They live in today. They can see the same problems we can see. There's no, in my opinion, if change can be implemented with a plan, which I believe is very possible. I've sat with this for many years, and I believe it's possible. It should involve all sides, and it should involve even the monarchs, especially when it comes
mm.
to how do we resolve land. It should
Yes,
involve
that's
them.
actually where I wanted to go to next, Dave.
Yes.
Because a lot of the time, I love to go to I love my long drives and going to lodges and going hiking and stuff. And all these vast pieces of beautiful land with the rivers running through them are run by white Afrikaners, and
Um,
our people are in shacks all together in, you know what I'm saying? So how are we
I
going to resolve? What are your thoughts on resolving this issue where one white family wants to sit on 500 hectares of land, while the indigenous people of the land are in squatter camps and they've evicted them from their original land?
if we look at the land situation, the major initial change came in 1913, right? Okay, there was change
Mm.
before that in 1938, and those times there was okay.
It's actually
Consider the fact.
1912, the Land Act.
Okay, yeah. Consider the fact in 1938 there was very few people population-wise in this country. So the fights was that time it was between different tribes and the Boers that broke away from the British Empire, and then it moved to 1913, the Lands Act of 1913, when the 13, when the British Empire took over. Now, since then, first of all, the logic for me is What was the population of this country then? What is it today? We cannot expect a population, a small population in 1913, and the British Empire saying, okay, you form there, you move away, you do this and you do this. And it didn't change in 1961, and it didn't change in 1994, and it didn't change till today. But how do we change that? That is the big concern. I am all for changing that in a righteous way, in a righteous way. But how does that change look? That is the big concern and the big question, because there is different narratives. I'll say this. The main focus is, Afrikaner people, or it's not Afrikaner, it's white people own 70% of all the private owned land, right?
Mm,
Yes, it's a big possibility. But
mm,
I always ask the question, and this is the other narrative. They do not include business owned land. They do not include trust owned land. They do not include foreign owned land. They do not include any of those things in this order, in that audit of private owned land. It is, and I know of many foreign people owning big farms in South Africa, and nobody says anything. I know of, for instance, these big people, these rich, controlling people. Just a couple of years ago, recent days, they bought a lot of farms there in the Kalahari again, and they made a sanctuary for some wildlife again. Now, I'm all for preserving wildlife, but it becomes a political issue where they control land. Where, if you look at the recent history in Zimbabwe, there was a big court case where the Oppenheimers still control like 100,000 hectares or something like that. And there's minerals there. So the government wants to mine the minerals. And then the Oppenheimers use the fact that there's some scarce eagles there, breeding there, so they can't explore the minerals in the land. So this is why I am asking from my side. I'm a very logical, open, straightforward person. The land issue must be resolved, no question. But that is why I'm saying I believe the only way it can be resolved is get the traditional monarchies around the table as well and say, okay, unpack this thing. Let's do a meter by meter land audit in this country. Let's raise how many foreigners own land, how many mining companies own land. How much does Eskom, for instance, own? I mean, recently there was also a news report of 210 farms handed by Mayibeng municipality to Eskom because they could not pay their bills. Now Eskom is being disbundled and privatized. Who's taking control of that land? What happens to that 210 agricultural farms? So I'm saying let's ask the real questions. Let's put all the facts on the table and let the people decide. Because it's very easy to say, yeah, you white people must just go and this. Understand the fact that for us as well, this is home. This is home for us. I've traveled the world. There's no other place like this that is home.
I
I've
hear
been.
you. But I think the issue is more about nobody is telling people to go. I think it's about how do we share the stolen land, because um, when 80% of more than 87% of the land was given to the small minority, what's happened is that you've passed on the land through the generations. So you've still maintained that 87%. So, what are your thoughts and your solutions to, okay, you know what? I can see that white people have actually still got 85% of the land. And these are my thoughts on how we can actually sort this out, because it's not fair that we have no access to rivers and oceans because white people have created private land out of natural resources. So, how do we go around that?
That is what I'm saying. The first part of the process is let's get the data correct. And let's not use it as a political tool, because remember the people I am talking about in this discussion now, powerful people using powerful politicians, and they're all working to the same goal. Why? Since 97 at least, the ANC has bought out a lot of land under the pay for land scheme that there was. They've given a percentage of that land to certain people, but they still hold on to a lot of land. Now, my question is number one, why do they hold on to it? That's the first question I have. They're using it as a bargaining chip, they're using it as leverage. And while the people of this country are still fighting each other over land, why? Why we have millions and millions of people cramped up in small spaces that we would all love to see having better living conditions, why not give it to them? Why hold on to it? But I understand this better because, like I said, understand this. I want to see the land issue resolved. I want us actually in South Africa to get to a position of relative peace, because then we can move forward, and more and actual peace will follow and prosperity will follow. But how do we take the contestation of that? Get the facts on the table. Let's get real. Get the kings around the table, and let's get this resolved without. I don't think it should be a fight. I think it can be done amicably. I really do. And but why don't won't they do it? Politicians won't do it because then they will divide and conquer power. That is what they do. Why did really, you ask yourself the question, why did the ANC in 1992, before 1994 elections, in 1992 betray their own freedom charter of the land? Why? Why was it removed? You can ask people. It was There was people in the ANC that wrote a speech for Nelson Mandela to deliver at the World Economic Forum in 1992. Then Tito Mboweni, that was part of the World Economic Forum, right? He's part of the World Economic Forum. Changed the statement to exclude certain issues. I must admit, today where we sit, I am glad that in 94 nothing was nationalized, because then today this country would have been sold completely. I mean, everything would have been sold under this corrupt political system that we have. We just recently saw in Zimbabwe, it was in the news, very few people spoke about it, that there's a businessman in the UAE buying 20% of Zimbabwe. Now, these people fought for land, and now the same corrupt political system politically decides, let's sell 20% of the country. The people didn't vote for that. They didn't ask for that. Now, I foresee in South Africa, if we take these corrupt politicians and they nationalize all the land, exactly the same will happen. They will sell it to the highest bidder. And that is why I stand for land reform, but the people must be the owners. All the people must be the owners through their monarchs, whichever way the people decide. But don't give politicians absolute power. We will have nothing left in this country. So it has to be safeguarded and not nationalized. What will happen? People, I am truly against the idea of nationalization for one reason. Don't nationalize the minerals, because then we give politicians total control, right? Let's take the minerals. Let's take the Reserve Bank. Let's not nationalize it. Let's give every single South African an equal share in the Reserve Bank, because at the moment it's private shareholders. So let's make the people of this country the shareholder. Let's take the minerals. We put it under the Reserve Bank. It's only sold through the Reserve Bank. No other channel. First of all, it serves the country services, and then the people can access that money against their name to improve themselves by education, starting a business, agri project, stuff like that, which can be assisted. We don't just need land reform, we need land development and reform. That's what we need. And then we base the currency of this country in a real system, not this nonsense. We base the currency of this country on our collective resources, including minerals, including gas, including oil. What do we have, Nsiki? Then we have a very strong currency. How do we offset that? Because we still want the trade. We want to develop this country as a net exporting country, as a producing country. How do we get there? Then we give South Africans the absolute best services, education, health, the best services in the world, to offset a strong currency, a super strong currency. And then we are on equal footing to trade with West and East empires. Because what we have to admit, what we see in the world happening is not a multipolar world, it's a bipolar world. It's two empires, East or West. And Africa, sadly, has always been sucking on the hind tit. Now, what will happen? We change one for the other. And I'm not against Putin, and I'm not against that. I'm for South Africa. I'm not against anyone. Why do we have to submit to an empire? The view and the vision I have as a person, as an individual, change this country for once. Let's be an example to at least our neighbors first. Let's prove that we can make peace in this country and we can become through that prosperous. Then SADC will follow us, and we will, I swear to God, we can become one of the strongest empires in the world. And we can be on equal footing with East and West without fighting any of them. They can still access the minerals, the whatever they require on a fair deal where it benefits our people as well. Whereas currently, 80% leaves, everyone fights for the crumbs. And we can see the crumbs are getting less. And on top of that, Nziki, the majority of people that we educate leave South Africa. And not just South Africa. I talk to people on spaces through Africa. It's the same in every country. We educate our people to a certain level. They all go to Europe, US, East, wherever, and they go benefit those economies. And our economy remains behind. How do you turn this country around? First of all, restart the economies that's dead. All the economies that shut down. Restart industry. First of all. Second of all, implement proper agri solutions. And there is. We create. I do work through different countries, right? So I look at a lot of things around the world. In Holland, such a small country, they supply a major portion of Europe's fresh produce. A small country. They don't have land. They don't have much land. They have a little bit of land, but they use technology and different means to get the maximum production out of a piece of land. Now, if we implement something like that as part of a land reform program, we can assist the people to develop the land, first of all. Then we create a two-tier system where you have a national market and an export market. And the small farmer sells whatever is the national demand, 50% of his produce goes to the national market at a set price. The rest goes to an export market at a higher price because it's always higher to export. And that creates generational businesses on smaller piece of land. And on top of that, we can really see change in South Africa, we bring back the millions and millions of people, and I'm talking about black, colored, Indian, and white people, spread throughout the world. And it's not just a South African problem, it's throughout Africa. Then we bring those people back and say, everything that you've learned there, come and apply it here now. And then we change this country into an advanced technology, not a developing country. We will be, if we call ourselves a developing country, we will forever be a developing country. Then we actually develop the country with a real plan, not this nonsense that we've been fed in sona after sona after sona. Okay,
So,
I'm going to pause. I'm going to pause.
so you were speaking about the conglomerates and the Walmarts and the big business that's got its fingers in the pie, right? What are some of the things that you think could be contributing to the country? When you look at the state of some of our roads or our township schools or libraries, things that matter. How do you think we can work around? Um, because we can't get rid of them clearly. So, what are the
Well,
demands that we can make?
but that's what I said as a holistic idea. I've can I say, encapsulated. And I called it Independent South Africa. The concept of change, I called it Independent South Africa. Reason being is we are not independent. We are really, in a big way, controlled from outside. So, in an independent South Africa, like I said, we will actually put the value of this country to serve the country and service the country, as well as maintain relationships with all sides. But they don't have to own everything inside, because the moment we can achieve that, then roads and all these issues that we face every day that angers the citizens should not be a problem. In actual fact, it should not be a problem now. We look at this country, the divide, we look at, okay, the DA run Western Cape is doing so well. Personally, I always look at this and I go like, okay, you have white monopoly capital mafia living in Stellenbosch and all over the Cape. So obviously the DA will be the Cape will be having better roads and performing better. That's not the problem. The problem is bringing, if you can bring in the DA tomorrow to run this country, nothing will fundamentally change. You can
No.
bring any political party that's represented today in parliament in tomorrow, nothing in this country will fundamentally change. And I know I talk things that sounds beyond the norm. It is, because we don't know what South Africa can look like. We cannot envision if we actually have peace in this country and we actually put our collective intelligence together and say, let's draw up a plan from all sides. And then let's get around the table and say which part of which plan is the best. And then we have a plan, a system. We cannot remain in the system and expect change. And also, Ntiki, we are living in 2023. We've got technology. We have got, like I said, a collective intelligence. But we rely only on the systems that's been thought out in the 1800s.
Mm.
Mostly dead people, sorry, but that's the fact. And they had these wonderful ideas. So it's either communism, socialism, capitalism. We've got nothing else. We can't think of something new today. Why? Because we are all indoctrinated. First of all, remember, we are differently indoctrinated. And I know this, I've learned this. We are differently indoctrinated, first of all. And also, but we are indoctrinated into this system, that we cannot think beyond this. Do the calculations. I'm talking about math here. Do the calculations. What is the actual value of this country, its resources, and the possibility of generating big industry? What is the actual value? No politician will tell you that. They keep you fighting about the small things and keep you focused on potholes. And that's the reality. And they keep us all focused on our divide. If you talk to me, Ziki, can I ask you honestly? If you hear me, this is my passion. This is me. This is not some nonsense I cook up. I'm not a politician.
Mm.
Why can you not work with me for a better future for all our children? I'm not knowing if you have children, but for all our people's children, why not? What keeps us so much divided that we cannot even hear
It's
each
white
other?
privilege, Dave. It's white
No,
privilege. That's what
I
dividing us.
no, I'll tell you what divides us,
Can
Ntiki.
I wait? Can I allow you to speak? I need to get my cable. It's just in the next room, but please do speak. Continue. I'm here and I can hear you. So
Okay, then
tell us
I'll
about
put.
white privilege.
Okay. It's yeah. There's the issue of white privilege. There's the issue of history. There's all these realistic issues that we face, that we have to face. But there's also the issue that I don't talk. We don't talk to each other unless we talk through media and politics, and that is where it gets distorted. We don't, as citizens, have platforms like, for instance, this, where people can raise their voices and say, "Let's bring real change," and it is very possible. We only have the channels of discussing this to each other via politics. That deliberately drives the division. Imagine we have 2 billion plus rand each year given to political parties. It's a money machine. It's employment creation on a next level, on a different class. It's employment creation. And the main goal of the 300 political parties is, what is the main goal of the 300 political parties? Why do we, are you telling me they are so fundamentally different from each other that the one will really bring change? No, it's just divide and conquer. It's a millennia old tactic to keep control of our people, divide and conquer. We should have been much further in this country since at least 94. In my opinion, we should have been much further in this country since 1960, when we had fake independence. Because I call it fake independence because if you look at 1994, the majority of the economy of South Africa was owned by Britain. So it was nonsense. And still today, look at the big hands involved. It's there. You don't have to search far. So I'm saying, me and you are kept divided. And you being told about my white privilege, and I've been told about things about you, but we never talk to each other. We talk via politicians and media. So create a platform, Tiki, where white and black people, our children talk to each other in school.
Mm.
They actually talk to each other. But we don't. We're still stuck in our, we number one, we don't trust each other. Understand that. We don't trust each other. We always have a third party involved in this relationship, right? When you have a man and a woman relationship and you have this other woman or this other guy stirring the whole time. Now that's our politicians in South Africa. Unfortunately, that's their goal. Constantly
But they're
stirring the.
controlled by the mafia you talked about.
It's a fact. It's a fact. What if I was the mafia and I'm taking 80% of the value of this country for me and my mafias? Okay, I'm a proxy. I'm a mafia proxy of foreign forces, right? So we're gaining 80% of this country. Why do I want change? Why do I, as the mafia, want change? I wouldn't want change and give up everything that I gain. Now, this is our reality. We have a big problem. And this problem stems through Africa. And because I know, I don't believe or I think or I guess, because I know South Africa was so instrumental under Thabo Mbeki's term to actually capture Africa's economy. They created the new African Union. Then they created bodies under the African Union, the Organization of African Business Development. And through that, they rolled out the central banks through Africa. They rolled out the African Monetary Fund, big World Bank connection. The whole Africa was captured, conquered by extremist capitalism. I'm not totally against the capitalist parts of the capitalist system. I believe capitalism failed us because by 2020, 70 people owned half the world's wealth, while 12, 14 million people per year died of hunger. That's wrong. But what we have now is even worse. It's globalist, extremist capitalism. It's not normal capitalism anymore. And that is serious. I think the world had that in the past when we had kings ruling over peasants. That's what we have now. And that's the danger of that. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. Hence, we have an I'm sorry, we have a guilty president ruling this country. Not why would the opposition not take him to court? Why not? Why is there absolutely nothing they can do? They probably sit tonight in the sauna and they all laugh. And that is what we have. So that absolute power will not give up control. And as long as they keep me, you, and divided for whatever reason, which I promise you, I spent 4 years of my life doing math and looking at every possible aspect, trying to speak to as much of as your people as I possibly can, and say, I understand that a lot of my people are also under this indoctrination and also under fear and also under resentment and divide. The same is on all sides. If we allow the minority voice that hates and wants to kill and destroy to take control, we will all lose. But if we allow, just step away from the fear and the divide and allow our logic to do the math and say, okay, can we do this? I believe, I'm honest. I believe my people, and I'm saying my people, I mean the white people. And I cannot talk for them. I talk as a one white person. We can contribute to change in South Africa. We can contribute to change in SADC, in Africa. But the contestation is just so high that if I open my mouth, it's perceived as negative. It's pre-deceived as negative. I know I talk on blind spaces, spaces. I spoke in North Africa on a space the other day. They give me the mic, and we have the same discussions because they face the same problems in other African countries. It's not just yet. And the guy said to me, Dave, you know what? When you took the mic, immediately my thought was, what does he want for himself? He must have a reason why he's talking to us. He wants to gain something. But after having this discussion with you, I could not pick out one thing that you wanted for yourself. That's not what I'm talking about. That's not what I'm talking about. I know there's enough in this country for everyone. As far as I can calculate and put the facts down, and as God is my witness, there's enough for everyone. Unfortunately, and we don't have enough people in this country, too much people in this country. We just have too much, a few, but too much evil people in this country. And that's the reality. And
So,
you don't
Dave,
have to look
we're
far.
going to.
You
I'm
don't
so
have to look far,
sorry.
Tiki. You can just
Huh?
look at you don't have to look far to find them. Just look at the Sona tonight, and most of them are there. But okay, carry on.
And the others are in Stellenbosch.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Now they're probably at the same place tonight.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Their bosses are there. So, can we have a part two of this conversation? We're just
We-
gonna finish it 5 minutes shy of the hour. I didn't manage with my charger. But can I speak to you offline and then we create a part two of this conversation because I can see the comment section is not finished with you.
Oh, okay. I haven't read the comments. I'll read them afterwards. Forgive me,
They
people.
are enjoying the conversation. They are grateful.
Okay.
Yeah, you might not see them because the live is gonna take them off. But people were thankful. As a young South African youth, this is the best conversation I've heard in a while. There's a first timer, good conversation. They're asking please for the next thing. Somebody's saying that since you got the land for free, why are you not giving it back for free? And then these foreign businesses could pay the taxes and reduce tax payment from citizens. There's a lot of comments. I don't want this phone to shut down without me being able to save the video. So thank you so much, Dave. That was lovely. I'm sure you also had a
Thank
good
you.
time.
Thank you so much. And I will say to you, Ntiki, I will also talk to you. There's people, there's youth actually that are more not more understanding, but yeah, let's say
Yeah,
more understanding, but not just in South Africa, through Africa, that
yeah.
understand it, that can do the math, and that wants the change. And they all know this is not going to happen in this current system. I thank you so much for allowing me.
Thank you so much, guys. You can follow Dave at Dave Gaybba on Twitter. I'll put down his link in the description box in a little while. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Thanks, Dave, for your time and your energy and your spirit. And we'll
Ah,
speak
thank you.
about part two and set the dates.
Thank you very much, Ntiki.
Shab, shab.
Okay, bye bye.